When we are talking watches coming out of China, Saint Martin has reigned supreme in terms of finishing, quality and design. However, will that be challenged by this little beauty that I have here that not only gives Saint Martin a run for its money on many aspects, but that also comes almost twice less expensive? Well, let's talk all about it in this video. And the watch in question is the Cronos White Birch. This one came highly recommended by some other reviewers and by you, my subscribers, as well. And let me tell you right away, it has some aspects that are absolutely killer, and it has some others that I'm not that convinced about. Let's check everything about this watch, and in the end you will decide if it is a good buy for you, especially during these sales where it comes at an astonishing $180 if you use the codes. Remember that the sale is ongoing. I'm gonna leave you right here with my video about the sale, and of course with all the links for this watch and for the other watches that I have selected. Go check the video that I did about the top 10 watches during that sale. They are at really good prices using the code, of course. But let's go right away with this little watch and let's talk about dimensions. Diameter is bang on 36 millimeters. The height is only 10.9. The endling to endling is 43 millimeters, so very nice and small. And the endling to endling, because this has male endlings, is 47.6. And this is a positive of this watch. It wears absolutely beautifully. This one can wear well on wrists, I believe down from 6 inches to up to 7.5. It has that kind of presence. It hugs the wrist really well, and all those dimensions are just perfect, spot on. They did another bigger version, I believe it was 39, but I think that this one, they just nailed it. It is absolutely perfect. Every Gara watch, I believe, now should come in this 36 or 37 millimeter frame. The second thing that I like very much about this watch is the construction. The case finishing, the polishing, the beveling is on par with what Saint Martin does, or almost there. Maybe it is a little bit less complex than the latest Saint Martins, like the SN0148, which is still one of my favorite AliExpress watches, but it is extremely well made, well finished, well beveled. And of course, let's talk about the elephant in the room. This is a blatant homage, some would say copy, of the famous Seiko White Birch, but the Seiko White Birch costs upwards of $10,000. Do you have that kind of money to spend on a watch? Not me personally right now. But does it manage to capture some of the elements that you see in the White Birch? Well, let's talk about that dial. The dial mirrors what the original Grand Seiko does. To be completely honest, it is not one of my Grand Seiko favorites. I believe that it's a bit too much in your face, even the original one. This one mimics it quite well, but I believe with a more metallic hue. The Grand Seiko looks a little bit more natural, more bark-like, more wooden-like, if you say, more natural. This one looks metallic, a little bit like aluminum foil, if you will, and that might be a little bit disappointing for some. And as this is the selling point of this watch, I'm gonna try and put as many videos as I can of this dial under different lights, at night, at day, so you can judge by yourself. What I can tell you though is that the hands are extremely well beveled. I wasn't sure first, but I took out my super macro, and as you can see, for a watch at this price point, we cannot ask for much more. It is the same beveling, maybe not the same quality, but the same number of beveled surfaces that you have on the Grand Seiko. Same story with the beveled indices, a little bit different than the Grand Seiko ones, especially on the loom part, but once again here they have the same number of beveled parts of the Grand Seiko. If you look at in this extreme macro, you can see some dust particles, not too much on the hands, but especially on the indices, which is totally understandable at this price point, and you will not see them with the naked eye. Even with a small magnification, you will not see them. You really need to amplify a lot to see the first flaws with these ones. Of course, that doesn't happen with Grand Seiko, which is absolutely perfect, immaculate, but once again you're paying $10,000. This is in contrast with Saint Martin and with what they have done with their JianZhans. Of course, Saint Martin gets the credit for having that originality. Their original models are not copying anybody else, and it is here that both companies have taken different paths. Cronos is once again trying to do the best they can in the homage department. Saint Martin is trying to fly with its own wings, and that is something that we have to recognize and maybe value. But let's talk about the movement in this watch. Nothing to do with the delicate 80-hour power reserve movement of the Grand Seiko, of course, but you still get two movement options here. You get the PT 5000, which is a clone of the ETA 2824, which is what I have here, or you get the Miyota 9015, which comes a little bit more expensive. In any case, you can see the movements through the caseback, which is sapphire, let me tell you, which is of course the crystal protecting that dial. The bracelet is really well made, 5 links. Some will prefer it to the Saint Martin bracelets, especially the ones that came before, up to the SN0148, which were a little bit sharp. You don't see any of that here. This is much more comfortable, as is the one on the SN0148, of course. The other thing is the clasp. The clasp is a different on-the-fly adjustment than the Saint Martin, but it works really well. Maybe a little bit better as it jams a little bit less. I've had some of the Saint Martins jam on me temporarily, not here. This doesn't seem to want to jam, and that is a good point. The links on the bracelet are made of 5 parts of independent links, and I did test that this time around. The loom is magnificent BGW9 loom, lots of it on the hands and indices, and it does last quite a long time. So, as usual, positives and negatives. The positives we have talked about, that beautiful construction, that sapphire sandwich, of course, that movement that performs extremely well for me, within cost actually, the finishing, that bracelet and that clasp, which let me tell you is even more complex than the butterfly clasp of the Grand Seiko. Everything here is as well done as Cronos can make it for the price. Remember, once again, the price, we're only talking about $180 here. The things that I like less. That dial, according to me, is not completely convincing. You may like it, I am not totally sold. It is not bad or anything like that, but it is not my cup of tea. And at least on my unit, the crown is a little bit hard when you're trying to wind the movement up. Yeah, so that is pretty weird, something to be noted though. But in the end, if you fancy the white Birch and don't want to park yourself with $10,000, this might be a pretty good candidate. Now, is it a watch that will come close to a Saint Martin? It depends on what Saint Martin we're talking about, and it depends on what you appreciate, on what you value. If you value original design, of course Saint Martin is going their way, and whatever they do is better than a Homage. If we're talking about finishing and quality of finishing, they're almost there as they have pretty much always been. But if you're talking about comfort, the Achilles heel of many Saint Martin watches, this is more comfortable than, let's say, an SN0148 or some of their sub-homages that came like 4 or 5 years ago. Is it as intricate? No, it is not. I would really love to see Cronos making their own designs. That would be really something to see, to be able to compete pretty much at the same level with Saint Martin. Some competition is needed there, and I would be glad to see this company because we know by now what they can do. So if they could go ahead and cross that threshold from the copier to the trendsetter, or at least the challenger, that would be amazing. During this video we have talked a lot about the Saint Martin SN0148. I'm gonna leave you here with the video where I discussed that watch extensively, and remember that during the sale, this one is on sale too, of course. All the links will be in the description below. Thank you so much, I'll be seeing you right away in this video.